Someone You Should Know, a program about people you know and even more that you don't. Hosted by Stuart Sax, veteran, husband, father, and grandfather. Now, here's your host, Stuart Sax.
Well, thanks again for joining us for another edition of Someone You Should Know. We're into February now already, the new year. We're into February, the month of love. But glad to have you with us. And we are brought to you today by No Sweat Experts. It is February. It's cold out there. Don't forget to have your heating system checked. And if you need to have it checked, call No Sweat Experts. They know what they're doing. They got a great maintenance program, and I think they'll take really good care of you. I'm sure of it because they take good care of me. Well, I have even more than a special guest with me today because he has been an idol of mine, a mentor of mine, a friend of mine, a brother of mine. I don't need to go any further. Mark Wariner is my guest today on Someone You Should Know. Hey, boss, how are you?
Hey, boss, how are you?
Glad to have you. Glad to have you with me as a guest on the show.
I know it's been a while. You know, the interesting thing is we've done a few shows, and you've actually interviewed me maybe twice before, but not in a situation like today. But it's kind of interesting because we both played role reversal over the years. So how does it feel being on the other side and being the boss?
Well, if it wasn't, I believe me, this show, I'm probably I hope I do swell your head a few times, because if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now, is because you took a chance on me more than 6 years ago. Can you believe that?
It was like yesterday. No, actually, it feels like more like 10 years.
Yeah,
it's so long ago.
You took a chance on me and said, "Hey, how would you like to have your own radio show?" And I said I would love to, and it's been rear view mirror ever since.
And that's kind of interesting because really it goes both ways. You took a chance on me as well. I was at a time where, I'd been doing radio for many years and I needed to get away, and I was on my own, and I had just I'm trying to think at that time. I think I'd already been in my own business maybe a year and a half. And then we had just, I don't even think when you walked in, we completed the first studio yet. I think it was still in design and still trying to be implemented and put together as a package. And so you gave a chance on me too, because at the time I was just like, if you have a voice and you have something you want to say, I want to put you on the air. That's how simple it was.
And it was a great concept then. And still today, several of the programs do have a veteran connection too. We both have been very, very passionate about our veterans and about our patriots, and KVGI meant that, and it still does. It's morphed into other things now because it went from KVGI radio to KVGI media, and you've got Raven Radio. You're still working on a lot of different projects. You're kind of an experiment in progress. But you kind of led me into doing what I do and helping me tweak it into something that it's morphed into. And for that, I'm eternally grateful, because from that, you not only were kind of the guy that gave me a chance, but you became a brother. You became a friend. We spent several times on each other's shoulders, arms around each other and all. And this show is going to have a little bit of humor in it, but it's going to have a very serious tone to it too, because it's been what, 6 months since you were diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and that's one of the things that we're going to mention to the listeners is exactly what esophageal cancer is. And did you have any inkling, other than, I know you kept having that little raspy cough in your throat that you couldn't get rid of, but what was the signs? What was the trigger that led to the diagnosis?
Well, interesting enough, moving ahead a little bit, my doctor had told me that this was a slow growing. So something that probably happened a year, maybe a year and a half, not any more than that. In early 2021, I started to, and maybe even the latter part of 2020, I started to have certain times I would cough, certain foods. I can't say that I would notice it drinking liquids or anything like that, or pastas or anything. But one specific day, summer of 2021, I was sitting at dinner table, and I think it was either a Monday or Tuesday night, and we had Taco Tuesday, which I can't, like, sometimes we do it on Monday, sometimes we do it on Tuesday. I know it's supposed to be on Taco Tuesday, but when you want tacos, you don't deny tacos. Right?
Right. You just move the day up.
Exactly. Like I said, you don't deny tacos. Right. And so I was sitting there, and we had already been to dinner a couple of times the last week. And a couple of things I noticed is when I would cough, it was because I was eating an excessive amount of cheese. Now, I say excessive. I love cheese, so I'm not talking about mounds and mounds. I'm just talking more than what most people would put on it. And we got home, and I was sitting there eating the taco, and the first bite, I started coughing. And it lasted like 2 minutes. And I couldn't catch my breath, and it kind of went into a panic mode. And I finally said, that's it. I'm frustrated. I'm done. I got to go to the doctor. So I go to the doctor that I've never been to before, since I'd been moved to Michigan. So I hadn't had a general doctor just yet, because I've actually, believe it or not, I've been in pretty much perfect health most of my life. I've had a few. I'm the one that's hurt my body, broken bones and tripped and fall, doing different stupid stuff, being a man, right?
Right.
So the inside of my body's taking pretty good care of me. And so I go to the doctor, and I just, flat out said, I got this cough. And I typically have noticed it, when I eat cheese. And she looked at me silently. Now, this is a doctor that's a good doctor. She has a Russian accent, doesn't look Russian per se. And she was silent. And she just looked at me, and she goes, don't eat cheese. And I didn't know whether to laugh or what, because I was like, I don't like that answer. So I said to her, is there like a pill or antibiotic or something? And she goes, no, just don't eat cheese. And I go, well, I don't really like that answer. And she's like, okay, all right. So this is the way we're going to work this through. Let me connect you with a surgeon. And I was like, whoa, stop, hold on. Surgeon? I came in here for a cough, and now you want to send me to a surgeon. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
She's like, well, so you have two options. And I was like, oh, I'm listening. Now we can go the long way around, and we can do antibiotics, and we can do the testing and figuring out what allergic reactions you have to different foods, which could take months. Or I can send you to an upper surgeon that does an upper GI, an endoscope, and then we could see. And I was like, okay. So I did. And I went into her just like within a few weeks, and she came out, and I did an upper and a lower GI, and she came out and she showed pictures. My wife and I knew right then and there. We didn't know what, but when you looked at the pictures of the esophagus, you knew. And she basically was real honest. I mean, she said to me, the lower half looks good. You're very healthy. There was nothing there. Not that she was surprised, but I'm 55 years old. And so she said, I'm in very good health. And then, but the upper, everything from the tonsils down looked pretty good. The stomach looked pretty good. Well, when I'm hearing that, I'm thinking, well, then what's wrong with me? And then she goes, but right before you go into the stomach, before it hits the last flapper that goes in from the esophagus to the stomach, there is a mass of tumors. And she said, we did 3 biopsies and we sent them in, and we'll know. Well, Kim and I knew. We didn't say it to each other. We didn't speak for a couple of days, whether it was or was not cancer. And my doctor knew that I was pretty much responsible for, handling any information that I could get. And so she called me. I was actually outside working in firewood and working on my wife's greenhouse. And I got the call, and she just called me and said, I'm just going to shoot it to you straight from the heart. And I was like, okay. She goes, you've got cancer. And, it hit me, but I don't think it hit me for several days. Several days it was there. And then I said, well, what is it? And she goes, well, more specifically, it's adenocarcinoma. And so that was really the procedures of getting there. And I remember sitting there one day, Stuart, going, how did I get here? I just went in for a cough. I just went in there because I thought it was cheese. But the reality is there were probably other foods that were affecting me, but I was either eating too fast, or I was swallowing way hard, or I was drinking too much liquids. And so nothing was catching. They weren't, what's the word for it? They hadn't grown enough at a mass. They were small masses and not there. So I don't have a specific tumor in the sense that when people get cancer, it's usually a tumor in the esophagus, a tumor in the stomach, or
Well,
anything like that.
for instance, in women, it could be a lump or a bump or
Yes.
something. You feel that there's something physically that you put
And I don't have that either.
fingers on. Yeah.
Yeah. Mine are, if you think about bacteria that might be in something like a 2 to 4 millimeter area, we're talking very small, but in your esophagus, it's actually large. And it's just a mass of bumps that are around the lining of the bottom of the esophagus. And I don't know how tall it is. I just know that it's at the bottom of the esophagus. It's nowhere at the top part. It's not at my tonsils. It's not into the stomach, but it is part of the flapper. And what it's done is it's from Barrett's esophagus. And so if I was to tell somebody, and I've told probably, I don't know, 30 or 40 people, I can tell you that I've had somewhere between at least 3 and 5 people that have gone to have an upper and lower GI just to see. If you have any kind of acid reflux, GERD, anything, burping, gases coming from your stomach, or things you may be creating on your own, because some people create their own gas by burping, you're letting in the acids into your esophagus and over years, and nobody knows how long. I mean, we don't know if it's 5 years, 20 years, don't know. Eventually Barrett's esophagus can turn into cancer, but just like anything else, we all have cancer cells in our body. But this specific one, it's a rare cancer. It's there is no cure for it. It's not like where we are with pancreatic or breast cancer, where we put it in remission.
Right.
This cancer is not if it will come back. It's when, and it comes back with a vengeance. And so they typically want you to do 3 things: chemo, radiation, and a surgery. And I've done the first 2 so far. And so right now I'm on a break. I'm letting my body heal, get the toxins out. So that's where we are physically today.
And like you said, the initial was just a little cough, and so many of us, if you just go through a little mild cold or whatever, the cold can be over in 48 hours, but
Correct.
You have this and you're clearing your throat. And I mean, we've been on air many, many times where you just get that nagging little cough and it just doesn't want to go away.
It doesn't want to go away.
You can't put your finger on it exactly what it was. Was it a cold? Was it something I ate? Was it spices? When I eat or drink, sometimes you say, oh, it went down the wrong pipe, causing the cough. But I think the message that maybe we're trying to send to this audience is, if there's anything that seems like it's a little abnormal, don't just let it go. Because as with most cancers, I think you said yours was considered to have been diagnosed in what, stage 1 or 2?
Stage 2 and 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the key to it, because when you can catch a cancer in the early stages, it's more treatable than things like, in my family, we had a history of ovarian cancer. Ovarian cancer in women, most times once it's diagnosed, it's already in stage 4. It's just, a slow growth killer that doesn't have any outward signs. I mean, my dealings with cancer was prostate cancer, and the only trigger that I had, I felt fine. There was nothing physically that led me to believe that I had a cancer, but it was just the PSA numbers. It was the blood tests.
Wow.
Getting the blood tests, and the numbers just kept changing. So that was the key. So, especially as we start to age a little bit, it's more important that when you go to the doctor and he says he wants to do a blood work, ask for a complete blood work.
Yeah,
So that,
you're absolutely right. And I'll tell you, the interesting thing is that when I go to see the surgeon, she goes, I went there to go to do the upper GI. She goes, oh, while we're there, we might as well do a colonoscopy. And I looked at her and I go, no, hell no. And she's like, okay, I'll bite. And I said, look, I'm gonna just be perfectly honest with you. I'm 55 years old. The last one I had, I was 40. And I nearly died from it. And she crossed her arms and looked at me and she goes, okay, do tell the story. And, I tell her and she just looked at me. She was silent for a second. She goes, we've changed since then.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, you explain now. How does it change? How are you going to convince me that I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to have what happened to me 15 years ago, where now they're trying to save my life, And so I was sitting there with her and she's like, I just need you to trust me. This will not be that complicated. It's a different medicines, different procedures, and we'll use propofol and you'll be in and out in 45 minutes. And I promise you won't have any complications. And I'm not going to put you under anesthesia and all that stuff. It's propofol. It's easy on and easy off.
Yeah.
And
in fact, the hardest part of it is the prep. It's drinking all of that crap to flush out your system.
And that wasn't that bad either, by the way. I was actually surprised because I was expecting her to give me like, I don't know, 10 medicines or, 20 things to take, or go to the pharmacy and get a special medicine and drink your favorite drink over here, whatever it was. That's the way it was, 15 years ago. She says, no, it's simple. Go to the pharmacy, get a
kit now.
Yeah, not even that. She said, just get Marilax. You're going to take a couple of spoonsful of Marilax at noon. And then at 3:00, you're going to take 3 Ducalac. I was like, okay. And then I forget what the next one was. I had to take something at 5. And between pretty much around 5:30 to 10 p.m., I was done. I had no problems. I mean, I was totally cleaned out. It was done. So it really, and I didn't get sick. And 10 o'clock came. I ate until 2 or 3 o'clock. You had a time frame to 8, and then you had to eat. I could eat little things, but I mean, it's just not any meats or anything.
Right.
And it was good. It was clear. And then I went in the next morning, and like I said, I didn't feel. I was a little hungry the next morning. And I did lie, but I told her the truth later. I did have a little bit of water that morning. I wasn't supposed to, but. And I told her I had a cracker. She looked at me and she goes, how many? Right. I said Ritz crackers, and I had 2. And Kim didn't know either. She looked at me and she goes, what? Listen, I needed something. And then she's like, well, the good thing is we didn't see any of that and you were clear. I was like, thank God. So you can get away with murder sometimes if you just think about how you can do it.
Yeah. I just remember, to me, and even today, the doctor has told me I've got to drink more, like
more water,
drink,
more water.
Yeah. Lots of water, these 16-ounce jugs or something. Well,
or you do it like me.
Yeah.
You have one of these things and you just drink like 5 of these a day.
And I have a hard time just drinking a regular bottle of water. And then when they gave you this colonoscopy prep, and they said, well, you're going to drink all the liquid in this jug.
And you're like, no. Yeah. You know what? I'm not going to drink any more water after this. This is it. I quit water. I'm going to be sober of water.
All right. So, your personality right now just amazes me, because I know from personal experience, too, once they say to you, you got the C word, it starts to play with your mind.
It does.
And you and I both know from personal experience that there are some people that can handle it and say, no problem, I'm going at this full gun. There are other people that go into deep depression and say, I don't know, why me? Well, we both know that there's probably no family that we know of that has not been hit by cancer. Decades ago and everything, maybe you knew a neighbor who had cancer and all, but almost everybody's family is affected with it. Now, the other side of that page is that modern medicine has done an awful lot to help treat most forms of cancer. Some a lot more so than others. Women 20, 30 years ago diagnosed with breast cancer, it was almost like a death certificate. Today, breast cancer is so much more treatable. So many other kinds of melanomas, skin cancers, uh, prostate cancers, glandular cancers. You can remove the gland, or they can radiate it to the point where it becomes neutralized. But once you get that diagnosis, of course, the next thing that goes through your mind is, how severe is this, and what are my chances?
Right.
Give me percentages.
Right.
And that's where your personality, your association with your oncologist comes into play, because you want to know, here's your options. What do you want to do? And like you
Right.
said earlier, you either take the long way around or you take the shortcut.
Right.
And
I think for me, Stuart, it was a lot of that, but I haven't really, I won't lie. I mean, I haven't like been in any total depression, but since day one, my wife had gone through thyroid cancer in 2016, and then 2017, a little bit of breast cancer. She was very fortunate enough that she didn't have to go through the chemo and radiation. She did have to go through some other stuff, and it did make her sick, and there was a lot of depression in there. And she survived that. And, here we are, I think 6 years later, she's doing very, very well, 5 and 6 years. And, the first thoughts in your mind is you go crazy for a minute. I did really good not doing any research. I didn't really care what everybody else was going through. I didn't really care what the statistics were. Listen, I'm 55 years old, and I had it right here in my mind. I had it in my gut. I got this. I'm young. The number one thing that with adenocarcinoma, the average is 67. The typical is in their 70s and 80s that get this. I'm 55. Now, I was diagnosed with stage 2-3. And the reason they say 2-3 is because unless they can actually take a tumor out and actually measure it, they don't know what stage you really are at stage 2 and 3. So it's really stage 1, stage 2, 3, and stage 4, unless they actually have a true measurement. And in my case, There's no true measurement. I have too many of them, and some are smaller and some are taller. If you looked at the esophagus in a whole, it's kind of like there's little ones here and big ones over here and medium ones over here. And it's just random. So there's no way to know except take the tallest one. So they just basically give you a stage 2 and 3. Now, percentage wise, the numbers were pretty low. It's 28% survival rate if I don't do anything. It could be 60 to 72% chance of survival if I do something. And the numbers that I kept hearing was 2 to 6 years, and then sometimes 10 years. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm going, so wait a minute, you're going to make me go through all this miserable stuff. And all I'm doing is putting another, 5 to 10 years of my life. Right. Well, I'm 55. I want to hit 100. So I got 45 years. How am I going to get to 3 digits? That's been my goal since day one. Love it or not, most people don't really want to get to 100. I do. There's some things in your mind where, do I want to be immortal? Yes, because I love life, and I do want to see what happens 1,000 years from now or 2,000 years from now. Now, do I want to be survival and miss a lot of people? No, but I've been a strong person, and so that makes me not really take the depression of that, losing somebody for a long term. I'm good for a minute, and then after that, I'm back on my own normal self. So when I look at what I have, I'm 55 and I have a positive attitude, and that's what I have working for me. And other than I've been diagnosed with the T cells, my immune system is pretty damn good for 55 years. That's how I look at it. And so the number one thing that I had to say, Stuart, to everybody is there's no doom and gloom. The doom and gloom is on your own. You can recover from this. You can do things. I know there's no cure. I get it. But I'm not going to focus on whether I have 10 years or 6 years or 2 years. I just have a road ahead of me. And whatever road that is whatever length it is. And I'm going to just take one day at a time. And I've been that way since day one diagnosed.
Well, and having that goal of hitting triple digits and all, that's a goal. That's a goal to keep fighting for. It's just like when people say, I want to retire at a certain age. You set your plan to get to that point, and you're going to let nothing get in your way. If there's road bumps, you go over them, around them, or through them. And you just have that kind of an attitude, because the opposite attitude and all can be devastating.
Yep.
We both don't wish that for anybody. So you got your diagnosis, and for people that have gone through cancer with either themselves or through a family member, that if you have to go through chemotherapy and radiation, sometimes that's the toughest thing to handle. Add to that, in Gaylord, Michigan, you just didn't go down the street and walk into a clinic and get your radiation and your chemo. You had to drive over an hour away to Petoskey in order to have this done. So you shared with me earlier about how challenging that seemed to be in the beginning, but then all of a sudden, week number 2, it got to be a little easier. And by week 3, hey, it was just like going to the corner grocery store.
It was a job. And it's kind of interesting that you mention it that way, because when it was first diagnosed with me, my oncologist was giving me a roadmap, and she told me a drug I was going to have to take. And then she was telling me that the only place to get radiation was in Petoskey, which is really, it's 45 minutes away. But because of the weather and the snow and the ice and everything that we're in winter right now, it takes an hour and a half. Because going down one long straight road is you could hit 37 miles an hour all the way. And in a 76 in a normal 55, but everybody drives 65, 70 miles an hour, right? You're driving now 25 and 35 on the average. And so you may come to a crawl. But we had this whole thing planned out, and it's kind of funny because I was like, this is gonna suck. I'm gonna hate it. I'm not. This is just okay. Fine. I got to deal with it. So I was like, all right, fine. There's no reason to be depressed and wallow in this. As mad as I can be, it's the only option I have. So chemo in Gaylord and radiation in Petoskey. But at the time, I really didn't know what my schedule was going to be, because I was like, you guys got to plan this just right. Because if I'm going to go chemo first or radiation first, I got to have some time to get back here. And so you can't like make it 30 minutes or an hour. And I don't want it to be at the end of the day where now what the hell am I going to do for the next 6 hours? Right.
Right.
And so they did really good. They really worked it out really well. And 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I would get up, in the most cases around 6:30. I would leave the house around 8:45, and my appointment was at 10 o'clock. And as soon as I got done, one day a week, which it first started out to be on Fridays, I would do chemo. And the first chemo I tried, I cannot remember the name of it, but it was something that starts with a C, and it's like a CEPH, but I could be wrong at that. It's an older medicine. It's been very good. I went in my first Friday. Radiation for 5 days was good. I felt a little bit of pressure, something like pushing on my chest and stuff, but that's just the early signs of getting the radiation, and just probably me more panic attack than it was anything else, And I did the chemo. I got in. We did some, I guess, a cocktail of sorts, and then they gave me this 50 milligrams of Benadryl. And the Benadryl went in, and I felt it. And he told me the side effects. You're going to have this tiredness. I'm going to be a little dizzy here and there. I'm probably going to sleep. Slow moving. It's going to be like slow motion, seeing things move around, and you're just going to be relaxed and calm. And I was actually kind of feeling the opposite. I was feeling a lot of pressure. I was feeling nauseous. I was feeling like something was taking over, a pressure inside all of my body. And I was sleepy, but I was having a hard time breathing. And that's an hour. And I got through it. And then he came in and said, now we're going to give you the chemo. So he injected the chemo. By the time he walked away from the injection, and I have a med port, and so I still have it in my chest right now. And I'll have it for quite a while. He had plugged it in to this big old machine, and I had a saline drip too. So I kind of a 2-step process. One was pushing some saline and the other was pushing the chemo drug. By the time he got up from the chair of injecting and walked maybe 20 feet, I went into a panic attack, and I couldn't talk. I was wailing my arms, and I was mentioning, I was like, Gary. And that was all I remembered. Next thing I know, I was vomiting and I was heeled over the chair. I felt like I was going to pass out. It was the strangest, weirdest feeling. And I don't even know how long it lasted. I don't know if it was a minute, 2 minutes. I have no clue. I woke up. I say woke up. I was leaning over and I look around me and there's like 9 people standing around me. and then my oncologist realized that I was going to have a panic attack because I had so many people around me, because my eyes were like, I was like, what the hell? What happened? What's going on? And they immediately, when they realized I was in convulsions, they stopped the chemo. And they kept me there for 4 hours. Obviously that drug was not going to work. I will tell you that I felt embarrassed to some degree, because I'm looking at the room and there's 12 seats, 11 other people in there. They're 80, 90. There's a guy, the oldest one is there, I think was 96. The youngest in there was probably 68. And here I was 55, and I can't even take a chemo drug. That was me going through my own anxiety and stress and panic, and they made me feel real comfortable. We stayed there 4 hours till the stuff can get out of my body. And obviously I had to try another chemo. And
Right.
So the following week, we tried a different chemo. We did it on a Thursday. So my schedule was 5 days a week, radiation. And I would go over to Petoskey. And then on Thursdays, I would go to Petoskey. And as soon as I got back, which was around 11:30-ish, sometimes as late as noon, I would go in for my infusion for chemo. And but I did 2 types of chemo. One is called now I can't even remember what it was called. The one drug that I had to take was an actual infusion that went into your med port. The other is a fanny pack. It's called the 5FU. And so basically you wear it as a fanny pack down below, and it has a balloon in there. There's no mechanics. It's just pressurized. And I would wear it Monday through Friday, 24 hours a day. And and I only had to do a few of those because that was pretty strong stuff, but it only puts so many milligrams into your body per hour per day, that the tube, which was probably about as big as this microphone, in 5 days, it would be empty.
So it's like a time release.
Yeah, exactly.
Process.
Exactly. Yeah. And it had, like I said, no mechanicals. It all worked by air and pressure and gravity. But I'll tell you, the first chemo I felt, Stuart, the only way I know how to describe it, and it's going to sound bad, is I felt like somebody was embalming me. And I don't even know what that feels like, but I felt it rush over my head. I felt it go across my shoulders. And when it hit my heart, that's as much as I remember it going down in my body. And then I remember that's it. I had a panic attack, and I was like, but I felt like a piece of like metal was going in my body and I was being embalmed. Worst. It took me 2 weeks to recover from that emotionally.
Well, I think the only way that I think for the audience's benefit is if anybody's been through a CAT scan with a contrast. Sometimes what they do is you're lying there and you're going through the radiation machine. I mean the X-ray machine, and then all of a sudden they inject you with something that just sends this warm rush through all your extremities, right down to your toes, and it's like, whoa, but that was the point that when you had that first chemo treatment and it really knocked you for a loop. I mean, I think that's a point where some people might say, man, if I've got to go through this every week, just, close the door. I'm out of here. And that's where modern medical treatment has evolved over the decades. Is they have said, oh wow, he obviously this one isn't going to work. He's got this other option, and the other option obviously was working a little bit better for you.
Right. Yeah.
It's so. One thing that I want to do, and our dear friend Christine Dean, who is producing the show, and we'll put it on the screen. You started a little website. It's called Sit Down, Shut Up, and Hang On, and you made it into like a little podcast. And you can go on YouTube and you can watch Mark sharing his story while he's driving to Petoskey. And it's both entertaining, but it's also very educational, and it kind of gets you into the seat next to him, and you feel like you're riding with somebody who's sharing their life with you. It's not all doom and gloom, folks, because I got to tell you, Mark, you had an episode where you're on your way to Petoskey, and I think it was raining a little bit or something, and it must be a 2-lane road, and you got stuck behind somebody that was doing well under the speed limit.
Oh yeah.
And so, here's this guy who's going to get his cancer treatments and everything. And instead of talking about how his body is feeling, he's trying to get this person off the road so I can get to where I need to go.
It was this box truck going like 26 miles an hour. And I'm like, I can see the road. There's no black ice. We haven't had it. It's not that bad. So you can go 40 or 50, and I'm the only one, and there's all these cars coming this way, and I couldn't get around. And finally I did find a place where I could. And I was, thank God. Cause that's just the most stress I had a whole day.
You're more stressful driving
than
you are going through the procedure that you're on your way to get.
Well, the thought about the interesting thing that I was going through this stuff, and I told my wife one night, I said, looking up adenocarcinoma, looking up what people have gone through. And that's when I started to do a little bit of research, what country, where are people, what ages, what are they doing, and they're right. The stats were older people. I talked to a guy in Australia. He was 69, I think it was. And he had the full on remove the esophagus surgery and did the chemo and radiation, but he had a big mass tumor, just one mass. And it was 5 centimeters. I mean, it was pretty big in the stomach and in the esophagus. It was causing him, he couldn't swallow hardly at all, not even liquid sometimes. And I was sitting on the couch one night with my wife, and I said, there's not enough out there about this. And not that I'm the expert, but I feel like that I could share a story, and so kind of backing up, my personality is usually pretty private. Unless you know me, unless we can get connected the first time, I'm an introvert. And then I will slowly come out as an extrovert, not open in public, but to the person. And that's, to me, that was the way it was. And so here I was meeting these people in the radiation, and the staff. Listen, I couldn't put a pro and a minus to any one of the staffs from the radiation and the chemo. They were awesome people. They have to go through a lot of doom and gloom, but they show up every day and have a positive attitude. They have to. And not because of you, because of them, because I got to deal with this too. And they have to deal with it tenfold. Right. And so I went in my first day and I was like, I'd be damned if I was going to have a doom and gloom attitude. I'm going to have a rocky attitude. I'm going to go out of my way to be an extrovert. I'm going to be such happy, lucky guy, and I'm not going to fake it. This is going to be me. It's going to make me feel better. And so I came home one night and I was telling my wife the story, and I said, I need a cool name. I need something, not Mark Wariner. I need something, I don't know, catchy. And we actually came up with this in like maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And we had 10 or so names that we went through, and it was quiet and silent in there. And she just looked at me. She goes, sit down, shut up, and hang on. And I didn't like it at first, but I wasn't listening. Most husbands don't, right? And then I look at her and I go, I like that. Yeah, that actually is kind of cocky, but kind of cool. It's kind of everything, right?
Right.
That was it for me. And I started telling people at the radiation, I started telling people at the chemo, and here's the thing. You can go through cancer and you can go through life being all doom and gloom, or you can change lives. And I've been doing that all my life. My life has been a mastermind of whirlwind of good things and bad things. But I've always had one attitude, and that was to help the person in front of me. And I've always done that, and that's never changed. And so if I can do something small like this and I can help somebody and change somebody's life, I win and they win. And that's it. There's no reward in this. There's no giving out medals or anything like this. This is just, here's what I went through. And if it helps you, awesome. You want to reach out to me? Awesome. But I chose not to be the doom and gloom. That was the one thing that I had to turn myself away from. There's no depression in this. But I will tell you, kind of backing up a little bit, one of the funny things that my wife was telling me since day one, she looked at me and she says, this is going to be your full-time job. And I was like, how so? I mean, I'm only going to go radiation in the morning and do chemo once a week, and then I've got the rest of the week to myself. How's that? Well, let me tell you, folks, the combination of anything, your lack of energy pretty much shots down 50%. You might have bursts of energy like I do. I can have a burst of energy for 30 minutes, an hour and a half, and then I could be out and take a nap for 12 hours. You have no control. There is no control. I take a nap every day, and it can last from 2 hours to 12 hours. There's no argument. If I sleep all day, I sleep all day. We just make sure that I'm drinking and hydrating, and I'm eating food, and I'm doing the things I'm supposed to do, and I have. And so now that it's over, as far as the treatments go, I don't have a full-time job. And now it's kind of sad. So it's like you said earlier, you have this whole task and things in front of you, and then all of a sudden it's open. Now what do? Well, you heal.
Right.
That's what you do.
Yeah. And you listen to your body.
Yes.
It's like running a marathon. You persevere, but you listen to your body. And if something hurts, then you slow down a little bit. You wait until you recover a little bit, and then you keep on persevering. And that's the way our relationship has been for all these 6+ years. There have been times that you have said to me, listen, can I say something to you, but in confidence? And me, I don't even tell my wife. If you tell me something and say, don't tell anybody. And I never did, and I wouldn't. But now that you have gone through this, in fact, you used to do a show called Live Life. One of your shows, wasn't it Live Life? And your famous motto is live life, don't let life live you.
Correct.
You've always had that positive attitude, and you have always, as you said, been a little bit more protective and introverted about it and all. Now with sit down, shut up, and hang on, what you're really doing is saying, I want to share this experience with you so that if you ever have to go through it, you will be able to attack it the way I have attacked it. And I think that's a fair thing for you to do, and for others to learn and share from you.
I think there's a handful of things that I could say, and maybe it's 5 things, but the number one through me is having a great attitude. That's the number one thing. You have to find that attitude that is for you. It's not for your kids. It's not for your family. It's not for your wife. It might come across that way, but you have to find peace in yourself. And so you have to find something inside you that's your comfort. And a positive attitude was the key for me, because if I had a negative attitude, I was going to wallow away and be depressed. With a positive attitude, I'm going to move 99 miles an hour.
And I'm going to add one thing to it for both of us. You have to have a good life partner.
Yes.
Somebody that supports you, understands you, is there for you, knows your good times, your
100%.
bad times, your hurts.
Yep.
You've got it in Kim. I've got it in Lauren.
And I have it in somewhere between 3 and 10 veteran friends that checked on me every day. Some really close friends and some friends that reminded me, 6 weeks later, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. I haven't been able to catch up on you. Life's gotten away, but I just wanted you to know I was thinking about you today.
Yeah.
So positive attitude is number one. Number two is being there for somebody else. And for me, my first day, well, really kind of like more like the third day in radiation. The staff was just, I can't even put words. They were just phenomenal. And I realized that going into radiation and going into chemo, that everybody liked music. And so I started talking about my past as a DJ, doing music and everything. And there was this one day so when I would go in radiation, there was one guy, Gary, that would always come in there, and then Amy would come in there, and then Kate would come in there. And then forgive me, but I can't remember the other 3 or 4 nurses that would come in there, but it was mostly Gary. And then it was a combination between Kate and Amy. And then there was a really tall girl. And one day Gary comes in there and says something to me about somebody's birthday. And I looked at him, I go, who's that? And he's like, some rock band. It was a lead singer in a rock band. And I was like, oh, why would you share that information with me? And he goes, oh, I just read it off the computer. It was, it was the who you know type day. And it showed you the memories and whose birthday was today. And one of the last things was to celebrate today's birthday, blah, blah, blah. And I went, huh. So as I'm walking around the corner, the girl, she's a tall girl. She asked me, she goes, well, what music are you listening to these days? And I said, wow, kind of interesting. I'm listening to one of Pink's newest song that she did with their daughter called Cover Me in Sunshine. So I go do the radiation and I come out, and I kid you not, all 7 to 8 or 9 of the staff members are all downloading the music on their phones. I kid you not. True story. And the next day, so I leave, and the next day I come in and they're all like, oh my God, that's the cutest song I've ever heard. So music became my secondary through this whole process. I listened to a lot of music, but if you haven't listened to the song with Pink and her daughter, Willow, I believe it's Willow. It's called Cover Me in Sunshine. It's 2 minutes long. It's a cute, short song. But if a girl can say things about the world and it's still here and it can change, then Cover Me in Sunshine, that's a positive attitude. And so I went through the entire process, and that was my song for the whole thing. So even though my show was about sit up, shut up, and sit down and shut up and hang on, Cover Me in Sunshine was my brain lock of saying, well, I got this. I can be positive, everybody. But you're right. All through that, the number key 1 point is two things. And it was have a great attitude and have a great person behind you, spouse, friend, or whatever. And me, I had a loving wife. And
yeah.
It's intriguing that when you're going through something, and I'm trying to put this into a positive spin, but you have a wife that's going with you through this. And so you're trying to change her attitude. Please don't cry. Please don't give me the doom and gloom. It's not over. I got 50 years I'm going to live, right? You're trying to, you're trying to brush it off, put it off behind you, get it off the shoulders. But at some point you have to break down. And at some point you have to be on the level of that person emotionally and listen. And, I did my quiet times of breaking down. I'm not a person to break down in front of people. But along the way, I had it perfect, Stuart, perfect. I had gone through 2 weeks of not breaking down and having any emotion. 2 weeks. I was badass. Things were happening. Things were rocking and rolling. And one of my very good friends, Caleb, sent me a cancer gift. And it was this big old package, and I opened it up, and there's like, I don't know, 100 items in there. It's huge.
Wow.
And I broke down, and I won't give the words, but let's just say the first 3 words to him in a text message weren't very nice, but he understood it and laughed because I told him, you're the first person to make me cry. And it was emotional. But you look at your partner and you go, we got this. You had it in 2016. I've got it in 2020, 2022. We're going to move through this, right? And it's just, you just got to take this one step at a time. That's it. That's really it at the end of the day.
You have, and you are, and you will. And I'm glad, because we have had a little bit of these conversations before, but I'm glad that you joined me on the show to say it in public, because I hope that we've left a positive impression with all the people that have been watching the show. And I thank you very much. And what was the name of the song by Pink and her daughter?
It's called Cover Me in Sunshine.
Cover Me in Sunshine. Well, I think that's a great way for us to wrap up the show, is to tell everybody, cover yourselves in sunshine. Listen to the tune suggested by Mark Wariner. And Mark, thanks, my friend.
No, thank you, Stuart. It's
for joining me, and thanks for helping me to be a part of your life journey too, because we've helped each other and will continue to help each other.
I will say one thing in ending. I have to apologize to you. Yeah. I forgot to bring the Oreos.
The double stuff.
The triple max, everything. Yeah. I forgot. Yeah. I'm so sorry. I was going to bring it. I really was. And as I was coming to get on the show, well, the computer had to reboot the computer. And then while it was rebooting, I went downstairs and got me a cup of something to drink. I was like, I can't do this show without it. And then I got up here and I see your face and I'm trying to get the mics working. I'm like, oh crap, I forgot the cookies downstairs.
So that's the key to success. Cover me in sunshine and get a bag of double stuffed Oreos.
Yes. Or any Oreos for that matter.
That's right.
10,000 of them.
Yeah. Never met a bad Oreo. All right, my friend, you take care. That will do it for another edition of Someone You Should Know with my very dear friend and brother, Mark Wariner. Thank you, my friend.
Peace out.
All right. Take care. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for joining us.
Someone You Should Know.